You're now listening to the Open Africa podcast with Laolu, Nosa, and Furo. Before we go into today's episode, we want to issue, would I say, an apology? Because we are talking about releasing the Yahoo episode for the longest time. However, we had a couple of challenges with the audio recording. Laolu, do you want to talk a bit about that?
Sure. In very simple terms, the audio was, it was crappy. It was decent, but we had an agreement with the anonymous guest that we were going to distort his voice, and we found out there was no way to do that without wrecking the clarity of the recording. So it didn't make any sense to put it out there anymore. It was difficult to follow. There was a lot of background noise. So it was very difficult to manage. That said, I think what we're just going to do is put out a post explaining some of the things that he said. And if there's an opportunity to maybe tweet out or include snippets of like some of the things that he said, and then if there are portions that are clear, then we'll do that. I think that's like a good place to a good place to land.
Yeah.
Also, people have been out of the country too, hence why we're at remote today.
Oh yeah, I'm coming to you guys from Florence.
International gang. All right, so let's get right into
gang
it.
Again.
Please.
2022 boss.
I'm 30 plus, anything goes at this point. Okay, so very quickly, we'll start with Union 54 and the impact on the, Nigerian tech ecosystem with regards to people that were providing like dollar cards. Dollar cards really. So I'm sure we also like all the emails that went out from providers in the last couple of went out for providers anyways, notifying their customers that they will no longer be able to provide cards, like dollar denominated cards, which obviously impacted most people. I don't know, Laolu and Nosa, do you want to talk a bit about this?
I think Nosa should give us a bit of a background as to like who Union 54 is and why does that matter to this ecosystem.
So Union 54, they're like a Zambian startup. They originally started out as also called like a digital bank in Zambia. Then they got like a MasterCard principal membership, and they issued their own cards. And I think there wasn't the startup itself, like Zazu, wasn't getting too much traction. So the guys decided to like pivot into card issuing, a bit like Marqeta in America, for those that are familiar. And then now. So before he even started, or before Flutterwave also used to do virtual cards through 333 Fremont. Everybody knows that. I think it wasn't the most stable service. They had lots of issues with their provider. And again, a lot of the virtual cards in the industry or people that were issuing dollar cards were all issuing Flutterwave at that point. Like, they were all leveraging on Flutterwave. So I think Flutterwave moved over to Union 54, and a lot of those customers that they had followed. I don't know if they were going through Flutterwave or they had direct relationships with Union 54. I'm not sure, but I think that's kind of how the intro kind of went. So Union 54, I think there was lots of chargeback fraud, and apparently, according to some releases, is for a particular bin range or for a particular provider, MasterCard had never seen that amount of chargeback fraud because, again,
sorry, what's chargeback
in
fraud?
this area, so it's when, what's it called? You buy something, you say you didn't get value, and you like log a chargeback, and more or less either the merchant has to pay back or something. You know, when your POS is declined but you get debited and report to your bank, that's essentially a chargeback. Then your bank now has to investigate and go to the person that issued the POS, and they will go to their customer and say, oh, provide the receipt for this transaction, yada, yada, yada. If you can provide the receipt, then they log it against you and they debit your position. That's more or less that's a chargeback. So with chargeback fraud is fraudulent chargebacks. So, I mean, sometimes you see with Nigerian cards, someone uses their card, they say, oh, they didn't get value, and they reach out to their bank pushes it. And because there are windows to accept or decline, sometimes due to inefficiencies, you can get a bank or the person that owns the POS can get charged for that kind of transaction because they didn't respond on time. So chargeback fraud is essentially just fraud around chargebacks, give or take. So if we use 54, their MasterCard basically said that they haven't seen this level of chargeback fraud from a single provider, at least in such a period of time. And it was just unsustainable, and it tends to happen once they're reviewing. I mean, with Kuda, we used to do international card funding, and there was lots of chargeback fraud around that. And Paystack reached out to us and was like, yeah, unless you find a solution, you guys are going to have to, we're going to have to turn off the service for you guys. And we were like, you know what, this is more stress than it's worth, and we shut off the service. So a lot of those things happen between processors, payment gateways, etc. And it just becomes stressful for everybody because nobody wants to lose money because of some random scammer. And it's better to decline service to a particular region, especially if you're not making that much money from that region. Decline service to a particular provider if it's not a big provider, than just trying to find a solution to it. So I'm guessing that's what has happened to Union 54, based on what we saw on TechCrunch. I mean, the owners kept saying that there was some audit thing, but it's not a typical audit in the sense. It's not an audit. It's more come up with a way where you're going to prevent these chargebacks. Come back to us and tell us how you're going to prevent these chargebacks, like these chargeback frauds happening going forward. And if we agree, we'll turn on the service for you. That's most likely what it was.
Yeah, because if it was an audit, I don't see why they would have to turn off the service. Things get audited all the time, and they let transactions go on. It's only if they are really bad audit findings before they then turn off the service if necessary. But to turn it off preemptively is a reach of something else.
So I think it's just the wrong choice of language. Founder probably just wanted to dumb it down for civilians and just called it an audit. But obviously, some people that don't know better call bullshit on it. But that's kind of how it works.
Interesting. So basically, people have gone from, because I know when I worked in the branch, you'd have people do fraud, withdraw money from their bank accounts and then claim that they didn't do it and start trying to get that money off the bank, right? And so doing it online with the volumes, I'm sure that's why there's so much concern around it, and why 54 has had to make the hard decision to switch off Nigeria essentially, right? Because I can only imagine the volumes that they were dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Yeah.
So startups.
The whole
no, go ahead, Nosa.
There's a whole underbelly of fraud related to international cards, or even it's maybe not fraud per se, but it's kind of fraud, to be fair. People looking for arbitrage opportunities and rates and all that kind of things, using it. So once you launch any of these foreign cards, a card service in Nigeria, you're going to have your first users are going to be people that are trying to find some loophole or so arbitrage opportunity to shank your systems. I mean, Dash has had it, MTN has had it. Anyone that's a fintech that's in the last, as long as you launch, they're going to hit you hard first. They're looking for arbitrage opportunities. So a lot of these things kind of exist. You see people using the card on crypto websites, using it on this thing, high decline, what's it called? Volume. Guys are hustling, that's all I can say. The country is hard, so people are hustling, and it leaves room for lots of bad actors. I mean, it's from the startup or from the founder perspective, when you're looking at the numbers, they all look good, but if you don't really know your users or know what they're doing, you kind of anyway. We'll probably have to have like a longer episode on the relationship between fraud and fintech startups, because contrary to what a lot of fintech people actually believe, they have a very, very close relationship. They just don't know their users yet. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's why like real KYC is super important. But beyond that, are there any startups that have direct relationships with Union 54? Or is everything just Flutterwave concentration risk that impacted them?
I don't know. It's a bit hard to tell. It's really hard to tell if they were doing it directly Union 54 or they were going through Flutterwave. But a lot of people that I know that were using Flutterwave's API suddenly transitioned to Union 54. So I'm guessing either Flutterwave introduced them or they were going through Flutterwave. Either way, it was a natural thing. Like if you now look at the guys that are not affected, so Wallets is not affected, Chipper Cash is not affected, and Chipper Cash and Wallets have their own card issuing relationships are very different. Like Chipper Cash, I think they use Rails Bank because you have to sign before you get the USD card. I think that was one of some disclosure that or some legal thing that you had to agree to, and it was from PayerNet, which is a subsidiary of Rails Bank in the UK. Wallet Zone, I know they got into a Visa accelerator. Once they came out of that Visa accelerator, GTP, they got like a license of sorts from Visa. GTP is their processor, and I think UBA is the settlement bank. So they don't have that concentration risk. Like I was telling you guys before the call, a lot of this thing is exposure. Is the reason why a lot of guys are affected is because the first port of call they went to was Flutterwave, and Flutterwave, ecosystem daddy, has been doing all these things for a lot of people. So whatever risk they have, you're also taking on.
Yeah. Just to point out that in all of this, Clasher turned the $22 I had left inside my card with them that I couldn't get out into less than 4,000 naira. Like they forcibly converted that money and sent it back to me. I just need people to know that that's not right, because that's not CBN rate, has not been CBN rate for the last how many years. But it's all right. I'm not too upset.
You clearly are. You clearly are. But yeah, I mean, so I guess on topic of Flutterwave, seeing the headlines in terms of what's happening in Kenya. So a couple of, let's say, Nigerian fintech companies are facing fraud allegations in Kenya. So Flutterwave, Corapay, I can't remember who else. And there's some, there are two sides in terms of like the story, right? Some people are saying that, so some people are, hinting that until you've done business in Kenya, you can't really judge because Kenya regulators are, if it's, I don't want to say the word dodgy, but that's the only word that comes to mind. And then on the other hand, people are like asking, so what licenses do these organizations have to operate in Kenya, right? And so, the regulators are in the right to clamp down on them and basically call them fraudulent entities because they're not properly licensed. It would be interesting to hear you guys' thoughts.
I think if you're operating in financial services within a market, and you don't have the right regulatory licenses, especially if you start doing significant volumes or you're an established player across other markets, anything your eyes see, I think you should take it like that, because we all know that this industry is regulated for a reason. I think we've established that on this podcast. Especially when you're a big player. When you're small and you're riding under the radar, sure, by all means, use that opportunity to grow, get your users, chart out your roadmap and begin to build towards it. But once you start, getting to a point of critical mass, I think it's only right that you align with the regulator, especially if other companies your size are doing it successfully. Or if you're a big player from the get-go and you're entering another market, you can't just be flying under the radar. It's not going to work. I remember when Asa Finance came into Nigeria. Is it Asa Finance or AZA Finance? That their name is very sus, but I digress. And they went to the CBN to go and seek out a PSSP license. I don't think they ever got that license because because of their crypto affiliations. I know they were trying to get, I think a PSSP license was what they were trying to get. But the fact is that they themselves recognize that, look, if we're going to operate in this market and not have chest pain every day, then we need to align or at least get something that lets the regulator look at us and look away. As opposed to the regulator being like, who is that person and how are they doing what they are doing? Those are my own 2 cents. Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like if you are big or you are getting big, then you need to align so that we stop hearing all these stories.
So my thing is, a lot of people, I don't think they understand that some of the activity they are doing is unregulated. I think the last couple of years with like VC money pumping in, it has encouraged like cowboy behavior, and people are being very reckless. In fact, despite they don't recognize that they're offering financial services. On the other day, you're seeing somebody that is offering you a USD account from Nigeria, doing billboards doing flag banners on body loan, be a body loan. And I'm just looking at it like, does this guy not know that he's drawing unnecessary attention to himself? Because once CBN has your time to realize that, they'll drill down and point out that it's unlicensed activity. And all of you that are involved are going to get lots of shit. Even Flutterwave has been getting lots of shit from CBN. They've wiggled their way around it in ways I cannot speak of on this pod. But yeah, so it's a very cowboy approach to behaving. I don't think any of these guys are licensed in that country. I know Flutterwave didn't start out like, maybe they have a license now, but they didn't start out licensed in Kenya, because that was that Claire Odero, I forgot her name, when she was that horrible buses incident when she called out Flutterwave about how a lot of the stuff was in her name. So it's like, just imagine payouts for a particular company is coming from one person's M-Pesa account. By the time they drill down and say, because obviously fraud will happen. And when they're investigating the fraud or they're investigating the AML violation, you now discover that this person that is at fault. Because if you look at the piece on it, it's like there are lots of personal random business accounts that are listed as frozen. It's not like, it's Flutterwave's official account. It's this random company with with shareholders that staff of Flutterwave was just frozen. I had something billion in it. This is very wild cowboy behavior. And again, I'm guessing now that the economy is tough and VCs are no longer funding like that again, maybe everybody will be responsible about how they approach business and it won't be gra-gra. Because regulators can be harsh, but they are there to protect the end user and there to protect the economy for good reason. It's not like they're not trying to be ops by default, but people are doing dodgy things, this is really a good segue into that for that Ping Express issue, where the DOJ, the guys are going to sleep inside a cell because they're running an unlicensed money transmission business, which is bad. Then their unlicensed money transmission business was used to facilitate fraud. Like lots of romance scam people were using Ping Express to move money. It's bad enough that your business is unlicensed and you're doing things that you're not allowed to do. Then you now don't have the checks and controls. In the name of chasing volumes, you don't put enough checks and controls to stop fraudsters from getting into your system. And now, after battling, they said they've been battling for 3 years. Now they are going to sell for money, for facilitating money laundering, whatever. It's not a good look for anybody. I mean, but anyway, as far as I'm concerned, that's not an African startup, that's a US startup.
Just African founders.
With African founders.
Let's quickly distance ourselves. Oh my days.
No, but I think that I remember we did an episode a couple of months ago, just like spending time talking about the need for like founders to like just pause and think about like governance, right? Governance, putting in place proper compliance measures, understanding what your regulatory environment looks like and how to navigate that regulatory environment, and just realizing that there are end users that are being affected by whatever it is that you're building. And so just understanding that responsibility and taking it seriously and putting in place measures to, protect their platforms and also protect like users of their platforms. Because if you look away from how do I put it? Beyond the businesses being affected, right? With all these sanctions and all of that, people that have gotten accustomed to using their platforms to, maybe send money to people or what have you, are now being impacted, and they're having to find like alternative means to do, their transactions. People that have been using like, I don't know, all the Union 54 cards, for instance, to pay for things abroad or what have you, are now kind of, having to shop around for new solutions. So there's a real cost to these things. And I understand the hunger to grow your number so that your VCs can be happy. But it's the same VCs that will now be looking at you, asking you what you've been doing since. So, yeah.
I mean, I also think that guys in financial services particularly need to be like extra careful. I don't think I shared with you guys, but I saw NIBS fraud numbers. Like NIBS, there was one report like this that I saw on fraud, and I did not understand what I was looking at. The sheer number of people that are attempting to use platforms to defraud people or run fraudulent schemes, it is insane. So you are there, you're building an application, you're trying to get users, and you're very lax with your controls. You don't see the purpose in KYC. There was one day I saw one guy tweeting that, why do we need address verification? And I was just looking at him like, you don't know anything. So if you're going to go into that business line, I think understanding that, yes, I'm serving people, but there is a significant number of bad actors out there, having that mindset may not necessarily be a bad thing. Just something you should know as you proceed. Maybe it'll help people be more measured and be less cowboys, like Nosa said.
I mean, look at what's it called, Piggyvest and Abeg. Like this whole rebrand to Pockets, getting a mobile money license, etc. That's essentially them growing up, because they were getting lots of shit from, they were not regulated onto this, and they were holding deposits. It went bust. Everybody's money is missing now. Everybody's money is gone. Like even the address verification thing you mentioned is, somebody scams you and you report to police or you report to whatever. For them to arrest the person, they're going to go to the bank and say, give us where this guy lives, so they can track the person down. If you didn't do any address verification, you didn't do good enough address verification, then that case is dead.
Or liability is on you.
Yeah, and exactly, the fraudsters have scammed somebody of million. They moved it to your platform. From your platform, they split they consume the money or they withdrew the money. Then you cannot find anything. There's even OP has there's a lot of fraud that goes through OP agents. You scam somebody, you move it to a no BVN OP account. You go to an OP agent and you withdraw. As soon as you withdraw that cash, that money is missing. All OP can do is point to the agent. The agent will be like, I do plenty withdrawals every day. Sometimes those agents sleep inside cell because they're seen as partners in crime, despite the fact they're just conduits. So a lot of the things that cause user friction or with things that we don't look and see as important are there for a reason. Because, it's all fun and good because you're not getting scammed. But the day you get scammed and you're trying to recover that money, you realize why, you need to do this. If you verify the guy's address, this guy lives here at this street and you can send police and police can go there and lock him up and collect your money so he sleeps inside cell.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
yeah.
People don't do verification, like they don't do BVN or something. And somebody comes on your platform and opens an account as GT Bank, and they start doing fake loan scam on Facebook. Now, maybe they collect 100K before you catch it. The people that lost that 100K, that's probably their entire money. Once they start investigating, you come to your platform and it's like, who is GT Bank? We didn't really collect anything. There's no profile picture. The email address is disposable. The phone number is just one random phone number because we didn't send OTP to verify the phone number. There's no address on file. That money has gone ghost into the system.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to note that the reason why organizations still have this responsibility right now is because when you look at it, I'll speak mostly about Nigeria. There's no we don't have solid databases where people's addresses are stored. So if the police want to do an investigation, they can, go to wherever, maybe driver's license agency or what have you, and get people's addresses and track them down. So the onus is on, platforms to actually be responsible. Because just understanding the market that you play in and playing responsibly in the market is super, super important.
Just to also add that recent events on this matter of BVN validation, I think recent events have even made me question that tier 1 wallet, no BVN thing. It's a problem. Recently, a friend of mine was impersonated. They went on her profile, saw her friends, opened a PalmPay wallet in her name, and then sent a message. They used a WhatsApp number to send a message to someone who had her phone number in her profile, who frequently left comments on her page. So they went to that one, sent a WhatsApp message to that one's number, pretending to be her, and got her to send 50,000 to my friend in air quotes. Of course, 50K because of those tier 1 limits where you can do up to 50K. PalmPay account, and the person cleared it out, then came back a second time saying that she has been having issues with her bank account, that they should send her another 50K. They collected 100K from that babe easy because the fraudster was able to send a PalmPay account number or PalmPay wallet number in her full government name to a friend. At this point in time, I don't care about financial inclusion like that. If you don't have BVN, you should not be accessing financial services, because the SANEF guys are out there in the trenches in northern Nigeria, all over the place, onboarding people into BVN. So if you don't have BVN in 2022, I don't think you should be enjoying financial services, because guys are still using it to socially engineer and rip people off.
See, there's another one. I don't know if Sportybet has fixed it, but before you could do Sportybet, you could do withdrawals to Sportybet as long as the name on the Sportybet account matches the name on the account. Now, you have your card linked to your Sportybet, someone hacks into your Sportybet, empties your card in funding the Sportybet wallet. From the Sportybet wallet, they do a withdrawal to an account that's in the same name, a no BVN account that is in the same name as your Sportybet account. Withdraw it, move that money out from whatever form, the no BVN platform. And that's it. That's a level of fraud. I remember when we brought it to Sportybet said that it's not their issue to fix. I don't know if they've changed their position, but that's how it was. Or the only validation they did was that the name on the account, the bank account must match the name on the Sportybet account. That as one. Even the BVN registration, even the SANEF agent, I've seen incidents of fake BVN, not even like real BVN with dummy data, like with synthetic data. Like we emailed Nibs about it recently, and it's like in some region where in the northern region, where there are a lot of amputees and disabled people, they don't do thumbprint. So a guy can basically register like 100 BVNs with like gibberish on it, with no form of validation. There's nothing that's unique.
Jesus
on
Christ!
It. I use those accounts with valid BVNs to open accounts everywhere. I use it to do fraud.
Are we using the amputees for fraud now? Where do we draw the line? What's going on?
No. See, there's a particular, I think it was Katsina that was like the biggest one. There's a particular because they have like codes or something to identify the place where you did BVN. And there was one where it's like a 000 or something, or 3 zeros or 4 zeros. And a lot of that shit happened there.
I hear that Niger State too is notorious. There's like a syndicate there that their work is just to test fintech platforms and find exploits that they can use to defraud people. That's why these MTN ones, I hear that a lot of it originated in that area.
There are Telegram groups for these things. Like, some of these Telegram groups where they drop the latest updates, like the latest scam. The MTN one, there was that glitch where they were funding, but there's also a fundamental thing on their onboarding where, what's it called? They didn't verify, as long as the number was linked to NIN, they just assumed that everything was fine. So there's a guy I know that got his SIM from some random guy on the street. And when you open his MTN account, it's in that guy's name. So essentially, I can rob somebody. If they have an MTN account, I can create an MTN account. I can send messages to the entire contact list and say, please, I'm broke, send me money. And they will send money to that account because it's the same name and to come up in validation.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think they're learning tough lessons because obviously they were probably trying to do faster onboarding and beat the banks, but then...
Furo is not tough lesson. This is tough money. That money is not what you use to learn lesson.
How many million? How many million? And they sent legal letter to like almost all the banks that the bank should refund their money, that it was collected fraudulently, something. It's like, well,
you must be new in this industry.
You must be new in this industry.
Just take your L and keep it.
But I don't blame them. If it was me, I would do the same thing. I don't remember the specific amount, but I think is it 20 billion naira or something ridiculous like that? The total exploit.
Wait, no, as they've written the letter, anybody else said
the banks told them that they are going to have to go to court, that they are not just going to refund money. So they are arguing it in court right now as we speak.
Because the banks have no, as far as they're concerned, if they were legitimate transactions, it's not on them to check that MTN services are up or are vulnerable. Yeah. A lot of these things is out of the kindness of your heart that you can recover. I can tell you one story. Push something stupid to prod, and I think you could withdraw more than you had in your account. This thing was only lasted 1 hour, maybe between like 3 and 4 a.m. and it was over 100 million that they lost. And they had to email in the money before the banks, please, can I aid recovery if the money has, can I put in the account?
Please.
Let us do recalls. It's begged that you, It was Sterling Bank that was affected.
Wow.
You have to beg. It's begged that you beg at, please help us recover. And these emails come every day. Every bank is sending it. This wrong transaction over sent money. Anything will find out that their fraud team better know other fraud teams that can WhatsApp and say, I beg, bro, PND this account. I'll tell you where the money.
Honestly, you will run it with relationships. You can't come and raising shoulder. It's bros, please PND this account. You say you don't do fraud. You say yes, you don't do fraud. You say yeah, now no wahala. That's how you run it. But if you want to be writing threatening letters, you are new in the industry. There's a reason why bankers know themselves. All of them know themselves. You see them talking. You say, this person used to be in Union Bank. Why? Maybe there was a time we needed an account PND'd. So we reached out to the guy.
The guy. I mean, all these loan companies that do what's it called, all you have to do is link debit card. I can go create, get virtual account, virtual debit card, virtual card, link it to your platform, collect the loan, cancel the card.
Live.
No.
Oh, you have
very
that
quickly,
card.
Nosa, let's talk about you guys are suddenly started collecting stamp duty.
It's not just the carbon as well, a couple of others.
Well, I think with stamp duty, microfinance banks are a great area because they are deposit taking, but they are not deposit taking. You have to have a correspondent bank that collects your deposit. So you are not holding the money. You don't have a vault per se like that where you're holding. This is another bank that's holding the money for you. So they've always operated in that gray area where they're kind of stamp duty exempt. But as country is hungry, country is trying to raise some funds and try to get a profitability thing up. So FIRS is trying to close up that loophole, and all MFPs have to collect stamp duty going forward. I mean, we have announced, Carbon has announced, other people that haven't been charging will soon announce. VFT announced their own last year. So just expect it. We are just the first ones and everybody will insult us. So every fintech that uses an MFP license eventually is going to start charging stamp duty. Either that or they'll eat the cost. FIRS is on a revenue drive and they'll collect their money.
All right, so that's all we have on this episode. And yeah, till the next episode, thanks for listening.